Hello, beautiful English students. It's Miss Allie. Please be taking notes on this. These should be titled Works Cited Page, Making Sense of MLA. So I know that you're finally working on your research paper and you've got a good way, you've done a lot, and the Works Cited page can always stump us up. It's hard to, number one, just keep track of everything, and then number two, to cite all of them correctly. And so again, we're using MLA, so even if you're using a source or a site like easybib.com, which I strongly suggest using, you still want to type in, make sure that it's MLA citation, not APA or another source or another way of citing. So let's begin. How to cite, when to cite. We want to cite when we're summarizing a source, quoting a source, or paraphrasing a source. So anything that does not come from your brain should be cited accordingly because it's not your idea and you didn't come up with it, and it's not your statement or your idea or your quote, and therefore you need to give credit to those who thought of it. The Works Cited page, as mentioned earlier, is a page that is at the very, very end of your paper, where you list the sources that you used in the paper itself. It should begin with a new page and have its own page number. You have the words Works Cited at the very center and at the very top. All of your Works Cited page should be double-spaced, and it should all include the sources in alphabetical order. So here we are looking at an actual Works Cited page. It's on its own page with its own page number. And so make sure that all of your pages are numbered and that they have your last name at the top. This is just a key thing to keep in mind. The text is all double-spaced, just like the rest of the paper. This is really important to keep that consistency. The entries are all in alphabetical order and by the author's last name. And then at the top, it says Works Cited is centered and at the very top of the page. Notice that the first line of each entry is close to the edge of the page, and then every line after that is indented half an inch, the reverse of a normal paragraph. And so we want to keep this in mind. Honestly, an easy way to kind of cheat the system is I just have the source and it's all normal, and then I enter and then I tab over all the other lines. That's kind of the easy way to do it. You can let me know if you have any questions about that, but we'll continue. So this is called hanging. This is the other way of doing it, probably the proper way, and it's required for all entries for your Works Cited page. You can do this in Microsoft Word by right-clicking and selecting the paragraph and then going under indentation, selecting hanging. And so you can see here, we right-click and then we go to paragraph and then we go to hanging under the special section of the indentation. So here it is. Now let's talk about how to set up your Works Cited entries. Most entries will consist of the following information in this order: author's name, the title of your work, the place of the publication, the actual publisher, the date of publication, and then the type of text. So if you're reading this online, you would put digital or electronic, and then you would put, for a paper copy, you would put print. And that way we just know that it's in print. Of course, there's lots of tiny rules to follow, but let's figure them out by looking at some examples. So here's an example of an entry from a book with one author. Pay close attention to all of the punctuation. This is sometimes good just to write down these examples. We don't have to go through every single thing, but to just write down one example and write down the notes that are above each one. These are really helpful. Notice that the names are reversed, last name, then first name. Because it's a book, the title is in italics, and then the word print shows that we actually had a physical copy of the source. Feel free to pause this video throughout. That's the great thing about videos, is you can pause it and play it at your pace. Make sure you're writing this stuff down because it's really important in keeping track of your work. So here's an example of for a book with multiple authors. Everything is the exact same except for the names. We put Jones Max and then John Clinton. And so notice that the first name is in reverse order, but the names after that are written regularly. Here's an example of an entry for a magazine. So there's title for a specific article you're referencing should be in quotes. And so again, the magazine should be in italicized. And so if you want to shorten it, you can shorten it to March, but AMR. There's a colon between the date and the pages to make sure that we see that difference. And then again, this is in print. Here's an example of an entry for an academic journal. So in case you're using any of those, this is an important thing to keep in mind. Sorry for all the update little noises. Here's an example of an entry from a personal interview. I know several of you are doing personal interviews. This is a really important and easy way to keep track of personal interviews. It's pretty straightforward. Just include the name of the person you interviewed, the words personal interview, and then the date of the interview was given. Here's an example of an entry for an online source. This is another just important way to look at it. This is the title of the individual page you're referencing. This is the title of the actual website that the page came from. Make sure that you include the date accessed. So you're going to put the date that it was published, but also the date you actually looked at it. And include, I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier, include web instead of print. And so again, this is just breaking down the title of this, and for the title of this entire website is, there you go, and then, but the title of the individual page we were looking at was about Delta. So making sure that you're being really specific and not just putting the first thing that's on the page. Here's an example of an entry from an online source, and so we look back at the same one, same example, just looking back at it. MLA also requires you to document the total number of pages referenced for an online entry, but most websites won't list that information. You can just skip this part unless there's other information missing. So if there is other information missing, if there's no, sorry, that's the bell. If there's no other listed, just skip for the title. Just skip to the title. If there's no date, then put ND, no date. Unless there are page numbers, put N period PAG period. If you run into any problems that we haven't discussed here, you can look up. There's different writing labs and different MLA guides that can help you out a lot. And feel free to write questions down on this note-taking guide so that way we can go over them during check-in. Again, thank you for watching this video. Please turn in your notes tomorrow morning or whenever you come to class next. Have a great evening. Thank you.